I'm AJ.
I'm Randi.
Where's Sunny?
Where is Sunny? Sunny's not here, but we have our best guest hosts with us today. We have Edward here in the mountains.
And we have Pablito down here in El Paso, El Chuco.
El Chuco.
And this is Bourbon Wine and True Crime. So welcome to the party, everybody. Sunny is out globetrotting as usual. Nothing as exotic as Europe, but
she's in the lovely Ohio.
Ohio.
Ohio. Yep.
Fun fact, Ohio used to be the supplement capital of the states.
Huh. Did not know that. I've never been to Ohio.
Me neither.
My dad brought me a shirt once back from Cincinnati on one of his trips. It was the ugliest shirt. It was like this boy cut red, and it had like this terrible vinyl thing on the front. I was like, thanks, Dad.
Thanks. Yeah. Never worked.
Right after I joined the army.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, I guess I'll wear it to school tomorrow.
Right after I joined the army, people used to love to send me like camouflage, like clothes to wear. I was like, thanks. I wear this every day.
Yeah.
Not interested in it on my time off.
So it was really hard for me to find a case this week that was interesting to me. There's a couple little rabbit holes that I went down. I was trying to find a particular case about a Black man in the South that was convicted of killing a white woman, and there was like no evidence against him. So if you Google Black man falsely convicted of killing a white woman in the South US, there's hundreds of cases. So I couldn't find the particular one that I was thinking of. And it was just, I was in a funk this week, but I did find something. So I'm going a little off script today and doing something that I don't usually do, and talking about a currently unfolding case, which is the Idaho college murders.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
So this was I'll get into it, but this just happened November of last year, like mid-November. 4 college students were killed in their home. And it seemed pretty cut and dry. What made this interesting, not like cut and dry, but nothing outside of the realm of like what we see here pretty frequently in the US. But what made it interesting to me is there was so much misinformation that was out there before the suspect was arrested that it like kind of fucked with the investigation. So I
don't know if I hope you'll get to it, but there was a lot of like internet sleuthing that was real questionable.
Yeah. Web sleuths was not very helpful, which I know it usually is. Like I think they were helpful in the Gabby Petito case in kind of helping uncover some stuff with that. But with this one, it was just like a slander fest. Like a lot of people were being targeted, people were being doxxed, which they shouldn't. Obviously, you shouldn't do that.
Before you get into the case, what are you drinking? Are you still
drinking
off brand?
I'm still off brand with my vodka.
I'm joining in on that.
Nice. I'm actually having a little vodka grapefruit soda mixture today.
I got a little Michelob Ultra.
Nice.
Keeping it simple.
So we are all off brand today.
Yeah.
Or that's more on brand for us than on
bourbon, beer, wine,
True crime.
Vodka.
However, bourbon has not made an appearance in a while. So
well, usually Sunny's the bourbon one. And then me and you were the wine ones for a while. And then I don't know, ever since I've been back, I haven't really been into wine. I'll get there one day. I thought about it today. I thought about it. And I was like, nah.
Yeah, we'll go with vodka.
Not yet.
Okay. So on November 13th, 2022, 4 University of Idaho college students were fatally stabbed to death in their home in Moscow, Idaho. Kaylee Conclavis, who's 21, Ethan Chapin, who's 20, Xana Kernodle, who's 20, and Madison Mogan, 21, were identified as the victims. So Xana, Madison, and Kaylee lived at an off-campus at the off-campus residence where the murders happened, but Ethan Chapin was there just spending the night with his girlfriend, Xana. There were 2 other roommates that lived at the house, and they were there the night of the attacks, but they were unharmed. This is the
That
first.
blows my mind. That part of the story always blew my mind.
There's a lot of information here that I was really surprised about. I knew that there was 2 people that were unharmed. It's just, I'm really curious about the trial, about like the motive behind any of this. But obviously there's pictures of the 4 students out. They just look like such like sweet, happy, fun people. So this is the first murder that the rural city of Moscow, Idaho has seen since 2015. And it was a quadruple homicide.
Wow.
So I'm going to go over the timeline for the evening of November 12th into the early morning hours of November 13th, and then how the case unfolded and how they got the evidence that led to the arrest that happened in January. So according to reporting by ABC News, as well as the affidavit that was released by authorities, Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin were seen at the Sigma Chi chapter house around 9 p.m. on November 12th. And it's only about 5 minutes from Xana's home by foot. Meanwhile, Madison Mogan and Kaylee Conclavis are across town at the Corner Club Sports Bar. Madison and Kaylee left the bar around 1:30 a.m. and they walked with an unidentified male to a food truck. The unidentified male is not a suspect. He was never a suspect. The food truck was live streaming on Twitch, and you can see the 2 women and the 1 man on their footage ordering food around 1:41 a.m.
There's always a camera.
Oh yeah, I know.
Cameras everywhere.
Yeah,
Yes.
they had a fair amount of footage of them, like leaving the bar, walking to the food truck, at the food truck, and then getting into a car service.
What is that?
I'm kind of down with this food truck having streaming on Twitch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised the food truck had Twitch, first of all, but then again, like 2023, but more like on a bigger picture, I feel like you cannot commit a crime anymore and get away with it as far as the cameras are concerned. They're everywhere. I mean, as soon as you leave your house, almost they're there.
Then not to mention every single house that you're driving through probably has a doorbell camera,
And that
security system.
plays into the case.
Ooh.
Yeah, the random security footage that we see, like technology played a big part in this case, and I thought it was interesting. And then AJ, you're going to be really interested if you don't know already about how they got the suspect's profile. So around 1:50 a.m., they grab their food, they order a car service, take them home, and they arrive shortly before 2 a.m. So what I thought was interesting is that the police didn't find this footage. Kaylee's sister, Olivia Glavis, found the Twitch footage and she brought it to the police. And she also brought Kaylee's cell phone records.
Good
So
for
she
her.
was
That's awesome.
was on a mission. At this point, Ethan and Xana are already back home with the other 2 roommates, the ones that their names haven't been released by the police, which is great. But so everyone's back home at around 2 a.m. At 2:47 a.m., a phone that is now known as belonging to the suspect in custody, Brian Koberger, stops connecting to the cell phone network in Pullman, Washington. At the time, Koberger lived in Pullman and he was studying criminology as a PhD student at the University of Washington. He's about 28 years old. Late in 2022, Koberger was terminated as a teaching assistant by Washington State University because he was rude to women and graded them differently than men. On October 3rd, he met with the professor to discuss his behavior. On October 21st, the professor emailed Koberger telling him that he had failed to meet expectations. And then on November 12th, they met again to discuss an improvement plan. And then we know what happened that evening. Despite being in different states, Pullman and Moscow are only about 10 miles apart. So they're very close to each other.
I'm glad you clarified that because I was about to Google it. So I was like, I don't know how far that is. I don't even know if Idaho is near Washington.
When I was looking it up,
The
I was like,
geography brain, I'm not.
I forgot Illinois existed when I was driving cross country.
So it's 10 miles. They're 10 miles
They're 10
apart.
miles across state lines.
Okay.
Yeah, Pullman is I think it's a pretty decent sized city, but Moscow is like very small, very rural. University of Idaho focuses on like agriculture and farming in their studies and things like that. At 3:29 a.m., Koberger's car is seen on surveillance footage driving by the victim's house on 112 King Road. In the next 40 minutes, Koberger would drive by the house 3 more times. If you look at a map, the way their house is, it's like their house is on the end of a dead-end street. And so it's not like he can just drive past and then loop back around. He has to like drive past, do a U-turn, go back. And it looks like a pretty not isolated neighborhood, but like a little neighborhood.
Yeah.
Around 4 a.m., most of the residents are inside their rooms except for Xana, who received an order from DoorDash around 4 a.m. I would love to know a restaurant that's open at 4 a.m. Well, I'm sleeping, but one of the surviving roommates, who was identified in the affidavit as DM, stated that she was awoken around 4 a.m. by the sounds of Kaylee playing with their dog. Shortly after that, she poked her head out of her room when she thought she heard Kaylee say something like, "There's someone here." Cell phone records indicate that Xana was likely awake and on TikTok at 4:12 a.m., which makes sense because she was probably still eating her food because it had just arrived. Also around this time, the roommate, DM, opened her door a second time when she thought she heard crying coming from Xana's room. She heard a male voice say something like, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." At 4:17 a.m., a security camera on a neighbor's house that is just 50 feet from the west wall of Xana's room picked up distorted audio of what sounds like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud, followed by a dog barking. Around this time, DM opened her door for the 3rd time after she heard the crying and saw a black-clad figure wearing a black mask walking towards her and out the sliding glass door. She said she was frozen in shock before closing and locking her bedroom door. At 4:20 a.m., Koberger's car is seen leaving the King Road neighborhood at a high rate of speed. And again, like if you look at the map, it would be obvious somebody speeding on this road out of the neighborhood because it's very twisty.
Yeah.
By 5:25 a.m., it is captured on surveillance cameras back in Pullman, Washington. But at 9:12 a.m., his phone is pinging the cell phone towers near the house in Moscow where the students were murdered. And this is the part that I don't understand. At 11:58 a.m., 7 hours after the murders, a 911 call is placed about an unconscious person at the scene of the crime. And so I was being a little harsh with this. I was like, why wouldn't you call 911? But the family has spoken out with like the victims' families saying that like this roommate is also a victim. Like she was also traumatized. Like we can't really be in somebody's head to know what they were thinking. He's like, she might have just thought that they were going out for a smoke. You know, she didn't, because it doesn't seem like these murders most of them were asleep. And I know like my mind wouldn't go to like, oh, everyone's dead.
But when you walk out of your room and it's in these like very twilight hours, or I don't know if I'm going in the right direction, but and you see a black clad figure that you're not familiar with at that time, and this is like the 3rd time, and I'm like you, like I don't want to be too harsh on this individual, but why not call 911?
Yeah, he was wearing a mask as well.
And I've heard some of her statements, and you might get to it, but it was from just reading what she stated, she obviously did not recognize this individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What I was kind of thinking is like, prior to 2020, somebody wearing a mask indoors in the US was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not so weird. And also this is I think there was 8 roommates that were in the house. So maybe it wasn't uncommon to see people coming and going that didn't live there.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know what I would have done. I would like to think I would have went and checked to make sure like people were okay. I don't think I would have checked to make sure people were okay. I would have made sure like none of my stuff was missing because my TV's still here. But we don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna assume that she was probably drunk, and I know I do things that make no sense when I'm drunk.
I think in her mind, she felt like she did the right thing. I'm sure, like, you know what, close the door, lock it, done with it, and you know, I'll wake up later.
She could have been tired. She could have been,
you know,
had some drinks. You know, you definitely don't function the way you think that you are functioning. You know,
right? So the 911 call is placed about an unconscious person at the crime scene. So police arrive and the bodies of the 4 slain college students are discovered. On November 16th, the police hold a press conference announcing the names of the victims and the cause of their deaths, which was stabbing, but no knife was found at the scene, which is interesting. I'll get to in a second. On December 7th, police announced that they are searching for a 2007 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra. On December 15th, Koberger and his father are pulled over twice on I-25 eastbound, once for tailgating and once for speeding, both within 5 miles of each other. But the first time they were in Illinois, and then the second time they were pulled over, they were in Indiana. So it was different jurisdictions that pulled them over. Police have stated that they just pulled them over for the tailgating and the speeding. They weren't directed by the FBI. They didn't know what was going on over in Idaho. I mean, they knew, but they didn't know Koberger was involved. Koberger and his father were driving to a family home in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. Which, like, aren't the Pocono pretty, like, affluent?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're
I'm
saying,
not sure.
they said later they can't afford a lawyer. It's like, that's interesting. On December 30th, Koberger was arrested at that family home. And police found blood on the scene that was on a sheath for a fixed blade knife.
Mm-hmm.
And they were able, it didn't match anyone that lived in the house. And then they were able to link the DNA to Koberger's family through a public genealogy database,
Sure did.
Nice.
which helped them to obtain a search warrant. They searched the trash outside the Koberger residence in Pennsylvania, where they got their match. On January 3rd, Koberger is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count felony burglary. During the investigation, police also discovered that Koberger's phone was in the vicinity of the victim's home at least 12 times and at least as far back as August. Which is interesting. Almost all of those times he was there either late at night or early in the morning. Initial reports stated that all the victims were murdered while they were asleep in their beds, but new information has been released that Ethan was murdered in the doorway to Xana's room, and he had a slash wound across his throat, and Xana had deep defensive wounds on her hands.
Wow.
Which that tells me that Ethan was probably the one they found that was unconscious, and maybe that was the noise that the surveillance camera caught.
Yeah.
I keep losing I need to make my font bigger on these. Ethan was the youngest of 3 triplets, and his brother and sister also attend the University of Idaho. His mother told reporters that he was one of the most incredible people you'll know. Ethan's obituary said that he laughed continuously. He smiled when he woke up, and he was still smiling when he went to bed. He was kind to all and a friend to all. Madison and Kaylee had been inseparable friends since the 6th grade. Ben Mogan described his only child, Madison, as a hard worker who was nice to everybody and was smart and funny and beautiful. Early on, this case had a ton of misinformation online and on social media. It was reported as a crime of passion, as a murder-suicide. The pictures and names of people that knew the victims were publicly posted on Reddit and Facebook groups where they were accused of the murders. It was posted that the victims were murdered because of their involvement with drugs. And while it might seem harmless to put those ideas out there, the police have to investigate them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like time and resources are taken out chasing down these false leads. Even a woman on TikTok is being sued for defamation because she accused a University of Idaho professor of orchestrating the murders, and that the professor had a relationship with somebody that lived in the house.
That TikToker like doubled down on it too. Like even after the arrest, like she was like not gonna like change her mind or her stance. It's just I was like, wow, how stupid can you get?
I was like, where did you come up with this?
Real quick, the genetic genealogy, they found blood from one of the victims on a piece of his. I missed what they found on the scene.
So they didn't find the knife at the scene, but they found like a sheath for a knife. And first, I'm glad you brought that up, because first it said it was blood, and then later on it said it was so Koberger had a public defender appointed in Pennsylvania. And then he had a different public defender when he got extradited to Idaho. And the first public defender said that what they found at the scene was touch DNA. And he was like, that can be from anywhere. So, but it was touch DNA, some kind of DNA that they found. Okay. And then they ran that through a public genealogy database, and they were able to like discover it, linked it to Koberger's family tree. So not to him directly.
Right.
And then when they went through the trash, they found, I believe it was his father's DNA. And then you can tell it's a familial match from there.
Okay. But the sheath is what was at the crime scene.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And I know like for that small town, just like the weeks and weeks of like not knowing who the suspect was, not even having a suspect, trying to find the car. and people were in the town very, very scared, and everybody was very heightened and very upset, obviously. And I think it was Madison's father, the one that was the only child. Her dad like immediately just made a push to the media and a push to police. He was very active in the investigation. But my point is, had that resource of like the genetic genealogy been there, how long would it have taken them to link it to him? Even with the car lead, even with
Yeah.
like the cell phone pinging, had they not had that resource, how much longer would it have
Right.
taken? Because time is against you, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay.
I would say, especially with all the misinformation, it could have lasted even months longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how
If not
common
years.
is a Hyundai Elantra?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a very common car, very benign, you
Yeah.
know.
But I mean, again, going back to the cameras, it's like once I almost feel like without even having any kind of description of a vehicle, right? You know around what time the murder happens. I mean, there are enough cameras around that home where you just look at any car that passes by within a certain distance of that house, from these cameras at different, like one north, one south, one east, and you just go after them, and I think even with just that, eventually you're going to have a pretty good idea of what this person is driving, because it's limited to maybe a couple hundred cars in about 10, 15 minutes, 20-minute span, right? I mean,
Yep.
yeah.
I mean, I don't even, obviously, like, more information is going to come out once the the preliminary hearing is happening in June, but it doesn't seem like he was linked to them. And so a murder like this, the first thing they're looking at is they're looking at current, partners, ex-partners. Did like, was there somebody that was mad at them from sports or class, or and it just looks like that he's, these kids are all in their early 20s, and this dude's 28 studying at a whole different college.
Yeah.
That's what I'm like. It's that genetic genealogy was really critical.
But do you think that do you think that was on purpose for him to not know them at all?
He had to have known of them for him to know where they
He
live.
visited the restaurant
Well,
where
yeah,
the two girls worked.
I mean, like, he visited and he did like his due diligence as far as planning, but I guess, was it part of his plan to pick a random, and not someone that, like, not necessarily a random, but
My theory is, and this has been speculated in the media, is that he was obsessed with one or two of the girls. He visited the restaurant that they worked at multiple times. He had been seen around them. And then, like, the things that his classmates are now coming out about and saying, which I'm not happy they're doing that. I think that that's also equally inappropriate right now, because we're not at trial yet. And so maybe not put that out there yet and really taint a jury, but there is a connection, like, that he had been around them.
And he's disgruntled, obviously, right? The whole school thing is just not going as planned. Now, what about those rumors, like, or the stuff I heard about him wanting to be a mastermind killer? Is that stuff true, or?
I didn't see it. I saw it at my work computer, and I couldn't get the website to open, and I couldn't find it when I was doing my research back here. But I did see that, but I couldn't find it again. So if you saw it, you want to speak on it?
I haven't seen
about it, but
other. Oh, yeah.
That might just be because he was going for his PhD in criminology, that somebody might have just said that.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, like, and I haven't been able to confirm it, so but that's just hearsay,
Right now, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he was acting, aggressive enough towards women that he was fired as a teaching assistant.
Yeah, that I mean, it is what it is. Like, the fact is the fact, and that does speak to
Who he is,
to who he is, his character. Sure.
So he's pleaded not guilty. His lawyer has asked for the preliminary hearing to be scheduled. It's scheduled for, I think, the 26th of June. And some lawyers have said that's weird because it's about 6 months out. And then other lawyers have said that makes sense because reporters have speculated there's going to be like terabytes of information with all the evidence in this case. So obviously she's going to want to go through it and offer the best possible defense for her lawyer. So hopefully we'll have an update in June and have some more information. But I'm very curious about like what the prosecutors are going to say the motive is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm. And I'm curious about what other evidence physical that they're going to have, because you've got to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt, right? And so you've got his blood, yes, on a sheet, but a good defense lawyer could do a lot with that. And so if that's all you have, and you've got him being pulled over with his dad, and then he's got questionable behavior, that doesn't make him a murderer. He hates women, also doesn't make him a murderer, you know?
Yeah.
Do I think he did it? I do think he did it, but I think they're going to have to present a lot more physical evidence to really be confident to secure conviction.
Yeah, and I'm glad Randy brought up the whole motive thing, because that's kind of like
Yeah.
I couldn't get the word out earlier, but like we you know, like in not knowing them, it takes away from that
Mhm.
possible motive. You know, a lot of killings are like, well, they obviously know him. It's
Mhm.
passion or it's money, or you know, but in this, like, you know, he did himself a solid by not having that kind of connection, you know.
What is it? Motive, opportunity, and what's the third? Like, to complete the trifecta?
I know what you're talking about.
Um,
Like
I cannot
like
remember.
money,
Elevator music.
love, money.
No, that's, well, motive falls into like love, money, financial gain, revenge, like that's motive. Opportunity, did you have the time to do it? Did you have the forethought of mind?
Means, motive, and opportunity.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is. Means. Yep.
Well, I mean, I can't remember the case. I think Morbid just covered one where it was a very brutal killing, and whenever there's a lot of violence, it's always, well, this was personal.
Mhm.
But that case in particular, it was a random stranger. It was motive or crime of opportunity. So like usually I would say maybe it was random, but the fact that they caught his cell phone near their house so often, and again, this isn't a place you do just like, oh, I drove past there going to McDonald's or whatever.
Yeah.
It's you're in that neighborhood to go to a house.
Mhm.
And so he had to have known them.
Yeah.
And I doubt this small town is that small where like no matter where you're going, you're gonna pass through it. So
No.
yeah,
I'll
it's definitely.
I'll post a picture of the like the layout of the neighborhood, and you'll see it's even going to their house, like their house is on a dead end street. And then if you don't make that left to go to their house and you go straight, that also ends in a dead end. So you're in that neighborhood to go to a home.
Yeah.
So
It's destination. It's not traffic.
I'm curious how his lawyer is gonna explain that, why he was there so frequently. Just
Yeah.
driving past at all hours of the morning and
Yeah.
evening.
So definitely a part 2 coming up.
Yeah, a couple months.
I mean, I'll have to check my schedule. You know, I do a lot of autograph signings, and I'll look into it, but no
I feel
problem.
that. I feel that. Yeah.
I'll have our people will get
There's
with your
nothing I could do.
There's nothing I could do.
My editing schedule, you know, I'm really booked. See how it goes.
So thanks for joining us, our best guest hosts.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys for having us.
Always a pleasure.
So follow us on Facebook and Instagram, like and subscribe on YouTube, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.